Scott here again in the Lifestyle Kitchen. Today we're going to be making pizza. Now, it's not a traditional pizza base, it's basically using a scone dough as a base because it's just a wee bit quicker and easier than actually having to prove your dough when you're making a yeast-based dough for pizza. If you have time to do that, it's really a great way because you get a nice crispy, thin base when you're doing a yeast base for pizza. But in this case, we're going to use a scone dough recipe and then we're going to top it with a range of toppings. Today I'm using a little individual pizza tin. Now, if you don't have a small one, that's fine. A large one does okay. And if you don't even have a proper pizza tin, then just your baking tray or your baking sheet will work exactly the same way. But it just depends on what you're wanting to achieve. So individual one like this, great for school lunches, half of that for a lunch, or even a whole one, depending on how busy the person is, or they might want more energy. So for our dough, in our bowl we're going to put some flour, baking powder, and a pinch of salt. So standard scone recipe. Now the recipe that you can pick up from QTV, it's around about 3 times this quantity that I've actually given the recipe for, so it will make quite a few small pizzas or a couple of large ones. So I've just pared down the ingredients for what I'm doing. Then we want to rub in our butter. So of course the rubbing in method is fat to flour. So we just want to rub that in with our fingertips until it's all incorporated and looks like fine breadcrumbs. And again, this is another one that the actual children could get involved in and make their own, so they could all make some dough, or you could make the dough for them, and then you could give them their own portion of dough to roll out or press into a tin, and then they could actually use some toppings and actually make their own individual flavours that they personally like. So just rub that in until all that butter's incorporated. And then we're just going to add our milk. Not going to add it all at once, just a wee bit at a time. I just want a nice soft dough. You can always add more milk, you can't take it away once you've got it in there. Again, scraping down your knife, there's a lot of liquid left behind on that. Just a little bit more down the side. At this stage, I should be able to get my hand in there and just work the rest of those and dry ingredients off the bottom of the bowl. So it's just come together. So my little tin, take a portion of the dough, and then I'm just going to press that into the base of the tin. Bring it up the sides, make sure it's relatively even on the base. You don't want a big thick bit somewhere and a thin bit somewhere else. And this is where you can then let your imagination go. Now what I find when I've done this one before, you could use a base of tomato paste or tomato sauce. I actually find spaghetti, so it's not traditional pizza, but I find this gives you a nice good base. You get that tomato flavour happening as well. So it's just about a little complete meal all in itself. So spread that over the bottom. Then I'm going to use some pieces of red pepper. Again, you could use green pepper, you could use mushrooms, just whatever you like. I won't say whatever you've got in the fridge, that's not a nice thing to do, to just basically put whatever's on in your fridge. I remember one of my early jobs in the industry was at the Hermitage at Mount Cook, and for staff tea, because we all lived in, this was way back in the early 80s and before trendy pizzas became popular, and one night they gave us for tea pizza, which was basically topped with all the leftover food from the dinner the previous night, and there were things like broccoli and cauliflower on top of the pizza, which wasn't nice at all. Probably quite trendy now, but back in those days we didn't like it. And then lastly, some grated cheese on top. If you've got mozzarella, which is the traditional cheese to go on top of pizzas, then use that. If not, just a grated Tasty or Edam or Colby will be fine. This goes on to a baking sheet, so you can have 3 or 4 of them on here, and into the oven. And so of course one that I've prepared earlier, so it should just slide off the bottom of the pizza plate. Just might need a wee bit of a help just around the sides. So again, great for the school lunches or just lunch in general. Would be your little mini pizzas topped with the spaghetti and any other ingredients you might have in your kitchen. So enjoy that one. I'll see you next time in the Lifestyle Kitchen.